set, hut.
As the hills of West Virginia resound with the sound of gold and blue football.
Almost heaven, West Virginia.
Now let's bring on the Mountaineers. Goes around about the 50, the 10, the 5. A touchdown, West Virginia. He did it.
He did it. Patrick White. Touchdown, Tay Von Austin.
The Don Nehlen's Mountaineers enjoy walking in where angels fear to tread.
I think you think that these guys are going to fall over dead for you. Well, I got news for you. They're going to punch you right in the mouth. It's Mountaineer pride!
Nothing cheap, nothing dirty, but West Virginia football. West Virginia football.
We've no doubt tonight they shouldn't have played the old Golden Boot. Not this night!
They've done it. They've done it. A perfect season. And the Mountaineers, for the first time in history, undefeated and untied.
Don Nehlen and his Mountaineers, for the second time, have finished a regular season with an unblemished mark.
Ain't no stopping the gold and blue.
It is a great night to be a Mountaineer wherever you may be.
What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome into the live stream here on the Country Roads webcast, March 11th edition. Got a quarterback update as we got to hear from quarterback coach Rhett Rodriguez yesterday, another press conference from Rich Rod. So go through some notes on their spring press conferences, get an update on these quarterbacks. I know that's one thing that's going to be a steady topic throughout this entire offseason is talking about this ongoing quarterback competition. So the good part about it is that it's been the one position group throughout the spring consistently that has received praise from the coaches. There's been a little bit of a mixed bag everywhere else, but quarterback, pretty much every time they've talked about it, seems like they've talked about it glowingly. So I think that everything that they're saying about these quarterbacks seems to be true because they haven't really given us any coach speak on any of the other positions, so I don't know why they would be doing that at the quarterback position. So we'll talk about a little bit of the update here, a little bit about Nico, Jalen, Max Anderson, Scotty Fox, Khalil Wilkins, all the guys involved. Got some good notes on pretty much each of them here from the two press conferences. So I'll read through my notes from Rhett Rod and Rich Rod's press conferences from yesterday. That'll be one thing we got on the docket. And then, of course, back half of the show, we got to talk a little WVU basketball as the Big 12 tournament's getting ready to start up this week. But the Hoops Awards were announced, and we can now add Javon Small's name to the list of snubs by the Big 12 Conference, joining, Kevin Jones when he should have got Big East Player of the Year and was snubbed. Stedman Bailey being snubbed for the Blitnikoff. You can go on down the list. Don't have the greatest history when it comes to postseason awards. Unfortunately, that continued when it went to the Player of the Year award, but we did have some players honored there by the Big 12 that we want to shout out, and we want to talk a little bit about the tournament. West Virginia getting the first round bye in the Big 12 tournament, so we'll talk a little bit about that. And, of course, I'll be back live again tomorrow to preview the game after we find out which team we end up matching up with between TCU and Colorado. So talk a little basketball at the tail end, but let's lead it off with the quarterbacks, guys. We got to talk about this a good bit here because, this is what we're all interested in this offseason. One of the main storylines is this quarterback competition. With this new Rich Rod offense, we know quarterback's going to be vital. They're going to be involved not only throwing the football, but, of course, running the football consistently in Rich Rod's offense. And the quarterback's coach will be Rhett Rodriguez, although it seems like he feels like he has multiple quarterbacks coaches. So we'll get into his notes first. But before I talk a little bit about that, I just want to get you guys a quick reminder. Appreciate you guys tuning in on whether you're on Facebook, Twitch, or the YouTube. But if you're watching the live stream on Facebook or Twitch, be sure come over to the Country Roads Webcast YouTube channel, subscribe here so you can get the pre-recorded videos, put a roster update out earlier on the channel. You can get the podcast episodes and all the extra content you can only get on YouTube. And if you are here on YouTube watching live or on the playback, just be sure hit the thumbs up button. That helps us a ton with the algorithm, helps us find more Mountaineer football fans like yourself. And if you're one of those that wants to stay up to date on everything going on in the Mountaineer football program, be sure you're subscribed here to the channel. Any questions, comments you got there live, throw them in the chat. I'll get to those here throughout the stream as well. But if you're not watching live, you can leave them in the comments and I'll respond to you there as well. But let's talk about these quarterbacks, guys. No further ado. starting off with from Rhett Rod's press conference, but I do have a couple things from Rich Rod's I'll hit here as we talk about the QBs before I go through his entirely. So let's talk about Rhett Rod. I'm talking about Rich Rod's system. He said, he knew Rich Rod's system and playbook before he even, knew and had the full grasp of his high school offense, and he was always bugging his high school coach trying to get him to install things from Coach Rodriguez's system, which is hilarious, but does just show the great knowledge that he has of the offense, having been around it, essentially his whole life. And, Rich Rodriguez would even go on to say, if anyone has close to as much knowledge in this offense as I do, it's Rhett. So I think we have a really good quarterbacks coach. I know some people were just trying to scream nepotism, but I think if you go watch Rhett Rod's press conference, which I encourage you to do so, I'll hit on some of the great comments here, but after you get done with the stream, check it out, because you can tell he's extremely well spoken. You can tell he's extremely intelligent. The things that he says, the way that he talks about the game, and I think that they were mentioned, more than once that he had a background in sales and things like that before he got into coaching, and I think you can tell that he really knows how to deal with the media, how to deal with the interview, how to deal with recruiting. All of that kind of came from that side of things that he got into before coaching, I think, which is really good. But I was sold already, because just how long he's been around the system, having played in it, having coached in it as a graduate assistant, worked his way up. But then after hearing him talk, I was super impressed by Rhett Rodriguez, I'll be honest with you. He says the system has consistently gotten faster when he was asked about changes to the system since kind of the first time Rich Rod was here. And one of the things, is that it's just gotten faster with how quick they snap the football. The tempo's gone up and up, and it was, pretty rapid the first time he was here. So I'm excited to watch how up-tempo this offense is now. So, we'll notice a big difference there compared to the first time he was at WVU with how fast the offense is. Other changes really was, besides the faster tempo, of course, is the use of more tight ends, which I've talked about this, in the past on a few other live streams. When you go watch Jack State, I watched them some last season. A lot of 12 personnel, sometimes even 13 personnel, was a lot of 10. Last time Rich Rod was here, we'd go 4 wide at times. But the reason they do that is because it helps with the tempo, being able to have those tight ends line up in multiple ways and kind of use them. They don't necessarily have a fullback anymore, but your tight end can line up as a fullback in this offense. They can line up attached there on the O-line, or they can split them out into the slot. And having tight ends with the ability to do all of those things allows them to not have to sub and be able to keep up that quick tempo, and they can still change formations with having that tight end that's so versatile to move around. And that's why sometimes they'll play 2 at once. So then if they want to go, maybe put somebody like in an I formation, even, they would be able to do that. So that's why I think more often than not, you're going to see multiple tight ends on the field, which will be a much different change compared to what we saw the first time Rich Rod was here. But he had great success with it at Jack State and his other stops that he's had recently. So I think that that'll be a welcomed addition. And then last season, they used more RPOs than ever before. He talked about Tyler Huff, the quarterback at Jack State, who had a phenomenal year last year. I think it was near 2,500 yards passing, over 1,300 yards rushing just from him alone. And really, they said he was comfortable with the RPO, so they used him a lot more. And that's one change to the offense, of course, is having more RPOs in it now than versus back in the day. And we talked about that in the past when it was just kind of, there'd maybe be a screen tagged onto, one of our read option plays, but now you have, your glance routes and all that stuff tied on with it. And they do utilize those more. And last year, he said, was the first time they utilized them really extensively. So I think we'll probably see more of that this season here as well. He views the team as essentially having 4 quarterback coaches, and that's kind of what I was teasing a little bit earlier when I was talking about the QB coach. He said, himself, Pat White, Travis Trickett, and of course Rich Rodriguez all can kind of be considered quarterbacks coaches on this staff, which is kind of what we expected with how they were assembling this staff, especially on the offensive side. You can look at it on defense as well with some senior defensive assistants and such, but you have guys that kind of have their hands in all the positions, guys that really have a lot of experience with Rich Rod and with his scheme, so I like that as well. And then here's a quote from Rhett Rod here, and just kind of talks about what I talked about a little bit earlier and what we've talked about throughout these streams covering these spring updates, is that the quarterback position is the one position that's continued to get glowing reviews despite all the others kind of seeming like a mixed bag. But he said, I've been impressed so far with what we've got. So yet again, that QB room getting that praise, being one of those rooms that only has gotten that seldom praise throughout this spring. But he said they have good depth at the quarterback position. They're all better than I was, and I wasn't too shabby, was Rhett Rod's quote. And he actually, did have some really good years at playing in the Rich Rod offense as well. But, one thing that he loves about the room is that they have multiple quarterbacks that have live game reps at the Power 4 level. Those, of course, being Nico here, Jalen Henderson at Texas A&M, and then Max Brown at Florida. So guys with experience in the SEC and the Big 12 already, involved in this quarterback competition. Feels like that puts him in a good position, which I'm going to flip to Rich Rod's now. I'll go through his whole thing in a minute, but let's just touch on what Rich Rod had to say about quarterbacks as well, because it ties right in here, and we want to get to this update about these quarterbacks. The quarterback has some really good competition, he stated. It's not just a made-up competition, that this thing is really, multiple guys performing well. Right now it sounds like they've been repping 6 guys, but they're going to narrow it down to 4 later in the spring. The 6 guys, I believe, as I wrote down here, will of course be Nico, Jalen Henderson, Max Brown, Scotty Fox, Khalil Wilkins, and I'm guessing the 6th is probably Scotty Keene. If I was to narrow it down to 4 initially from hearing those 6 names, I would have thought that it would probably be Nico, Jalen, Max Brown, which I think it will still be those 3. I would have thought the 4th would probably be Khalil Wilkins. But sounds like Scotty Fox is really making a case here, as I jotted down his notes as he kind of talked about all of them individually. But what he says about Scotty Fox, in quotes I've got here, been really impressed with Scotty Fox, and he's got a great future, are the 2 quotes Rich Rod said about Scotty Fox, which was he was the 4th quarterback that he named, by name, outside of Nico, Jalen Henderson, and Max Brown. So is he kind of hinting that might be the 4 that they narrow it down to, and Scotty Fox is maybe, as an early enrollee, as a true freshman, leaped over Khalil Wilkins for the time being? It's a lot of time for things to change, but it's possible that that's what it's sounding like right now, which you would hate to hear that, because you would hate to hear Khalil Wilkins be, odd man out, as they're going to have to cut down, a lot of players on this roster, as we're already over the limit, and we know about the upcoming new roster rules with the House settlement coming in April. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. But as far as his comments on the other, he called Nico and Jalen both veterans that have done a really good job, which to me, as I've talked about in the past, those are my 2 favorites to potentially win the job. It sounds like it's definitely still up in the air. Mentioned Max Brown, the transfer from Florida. Was at Florida previously, and then at Charlotte, has got some skills. And then, of course, saying he's been really impressed with Scotty Fox was Rich Rod's quotes on all of the quarterbacks there. So interesting there as far as the updates that we have. I think it seems like Jalen and Nico still, a little bit of a notch ahead because of their experience, being the veterans that they are, which we kind of believed both of those 2 guys to be the main guys that will be the 2 that we decide between ultimately. But I said don't factor out Max Brown because, no one counted Tyler Huff into Jack State's competition last year. He ended up winning that role. And then, of course, Scotty Fox sounds like he may have something to say in this as well. So we'll see how it shakes out, but that's what the individual thoughts on the quarterback updates. Let's get into some thoughts from Rich Rod's press conference earlier yesterday as well. I'm going to take a swig of my drink, and then I'll talk about Rich Rod's presser. All right, so halfway through spring practice, been one thing that I've liked is that, every now and then in spring practice, we would hear from Neil Brown in the previous regime. They would mix in some players and coaches, but I like hearing from Rich Rod consistently, at least like once a week. It's been almost after every practice that they have on a weekday. We usually get a press conference from him, which has been nice and been, easy to cover here on the channel then and give you guys more updates about what's going on, straight from the horse's mouth and kind of taking my notes from listening to his press conference. So it's been nice. And now at the halfway mark, we got another one yesterday, where he touched on that he thought that they were improved on Monday compared to where they were on Saturday. Sounds like he was not very pleased with Saturday's practice, which has been the case, for a couple of practices in the past. But he said the improvements that he thought they made from Saturday to Monday were mentally, scheme-wise, and fundamentally-wise. They were a little bit better, and seems like they're taking strides there, which is a good thing to hear. I think that they're still probably adjusting to the tempo. Seems like that's something that's kind of going along team-wide, really. They'll practice again Wednesday and Thursday, so kind of an update on the schedule here. Have another practice Wednesday and Thursday, so hopefully we'll get some more updates, and I'll get another video out later in this week to talk a little bit more about it. And then they'll be off for a week or so there for spring break before they reconvene to close up shop for the back half of spring practice. Let's see, he likes the idea of having a more veteran presence on the coaching staff in regards to going after Larry Porter, who we talked about in the previous stream how highly regarded Larry Porter was and how much of an absolute home run that was of a coaching hire. And I thought that was one of the reasons he probably went with a veteran, is because when you look at this staff, that's kind of the mix that he had, and you had another veteran in Chad Scott you were trying to replace, and you go get Larry Porter, and so you just keep that veteran presence on staff. You mix that veteran presence with a lot of young, really hot up-and-coming names in the coaching world as well. I've said it before and I'll say it again, I think this is on paper, the best WVU football coaching staff in history. It certainly has more money behind it than probably any before as well. So hopefully that pays dividends when the games roll around here in the fall. And then he was asked about the transfer running backs, and specifically the one he singled out here was Ty Edwards. Said Ty Edwards has made a big step since, when spring practice first began, and that's the one that I've kind of favored. When we did our depth chart projection, I think that he will end up kind of being the secondary one there to Jaheim White to form that 1-2 punch, 235 pounds, 6'4" running back that has great speed. So I really do like Ty Edwards, and good to hear that he's making really good leaps already. He mentioned the tempo was an adjustment for the transfer running backs, which, the downside is we haven't really had a chance to see Jaheim White in the Rich Rod scheme yet, which is something we're all excited about as he's still recovering from that injury. But your silver lining there is all these other newcomers that haven't really touched the ball yet. Your redshirt freshmen that are involved. D.R. Hubbard's been one that coach has mentioned as a standout. And then you get your transfers, your Ty Edwards and your L.J. Turners. They've been getting the majority of the carries here through the spring. But did sound like we do have a good chance of getting Jaheim White back for the back half of spring football practice there at least, is what Coach Rod said here in the presser today. So I'm guessing that probably means after the spring break, maybe we'll get Jaheim White back, which would be great to see. He was asked what positions he felt like they needed more speed in, because that's something he's talked about in the past, was needing more speed. And he said everywhere. And he went through and named, offensive line, defensive line, the linebackers, the secondary, the receivers, the running backs. He said really they need it everywhere. And, some of that will come over the summer once guys get adjusted to, the tempo, because he said he feels like that's kind of the issue right now in a lot of those position groups, is they're just probably thinking too much, so they're not reacting, they're not moving at full speed as they will eventually. And then also, once we get through summer workouts, they're going to do a good job making those guys bigger, faster, stronger before fall camp rolls around as well, especially some of the guys that are young, that enrolled early, and, are transfers just now coming in here and getting acclimated as well. And speaking of those early enrollees, Rich Rod also mentioned he tries not to get on to the early enrollees too much, the true freshmen that are here, because those are guys that should be getting ready for the prom, right about now. And that's been another fun and refreshing things from Rich Rod's press conference throughout the spring, is you get a little bit of good comedy in there from him as well. But talked about the quarterback competition. I won't go over that again. The only other thing that I jotted down here was talking about the social media ban that had been reported, which he said, he doesn't ban social media. He doesn't even ban TikTok necessarily, as far as like the players can be on TikTok. He only bans dancing on TikTok. He said he doesn't want the players in the locker room in their tights dancing around on TikTok. Doesn't really fit the hard edge culture and fit the hard edge image. So, that's that for Rich Rod's press conference. I know the main thing right there was updating the quarterback competition, so I wanted to talk a little bit about that for sure, guys. But other than that, see if we got any comments in here. I got to see Matt Dixon here, Eric Flowers. Appreciate you guys tuning in here live. I know coming at them early in the day, a lot of people will catch them on the playback, and that's cool as well. If you are watching the playback, you can still help us out hitting the like button there to help with the YouTube algorithm, and be sure you're subscribed to the channel, and you can share your thoughts in the comments section. I'll respond to you later in the day as well. Matt Dix said he took Oklahoma State on the money line at noon. Hey, hopefully that pays off for you, man. Hit a 4-leg parlay last night. I see. That's what's up. Hopefully the good luck continues today, man. Matt Dix said, we wish Wilkins best of luck, and hopefully he can find another position to play and doesn't have to transfer. Yeah, I know that's the bad thing, man. If they're going to narrow this down, the odd men out, unfortunately, probably will have to transfer. Now, Wilkins maybe not be one that has to, but, even if he is, he may want to. But, I think at every position, they're going to have to trim down a little bit, essentially, because well over the roster limit, and that, was 105-player limit, I think it's going to be now, and Rich Rod's lamented that throughout the spring. And you hate that, because you're going to lose guys that could be good players for you down the road instead of getting the chance to develop them now. Just, one of those new changes that we hate. Hey, what's going on, Eric Flowers? I see you in there, man. I'm in the same boat, brother. But I always appreciate you guys tuning in and chiming in. That's with the quarterback update, the little press conference talk. Some other odds and ends here I did want to touch on the football side. One of which is we just kind of have a number to something that we've talked about previously, and that's West Virginia having a lot of new players in 2025, essentially a whole new roster. I think one starter back on offense, 1 to 2 back on defense. So you're looking at 3 starters total on the whole team, which means a lot of new players. And West Virginia, according to CBS, is going to lead the nation in the amount of new players that they have. Currently 59 on the roster for West Virginia, which that goes right hand in hand with what Rich Rod did last year. There was the positive news to that, because last year Rich Rod had 60 new players at Jack State. And, of course, They got off to a little bit slow start there. I think they lost the first 3 games of the season, but then did not lose again for the rest of the year, went on to win a conference title. So Rich Rod has experience with, turning over a roster like this and still having a successful season. And today's day and age, you can have this turnover in 1 year and still have a successful year. So just because this number is here, that doesn't really factor in as much as it used to in the past. Used to be experience was such a thing that you could look at to see which teams were going to be successful. And I think look no further than Oklahoma State in last year's Big 12, and they were one of the most experienced teams, not only in the conference, but in the entire nation. We saw the bad year that they had, not even reaching bowl eligibility. So I think a lot of roster turnover for West Virginia is not a bad thing when you had a year that really wasn't the best anyways. So I like a lot of the new pieces West Virginia's brought in, and having a coach that has experience turning over the roster like this, I still think we can have a successful 2025, as you guys have heard me say throughout the offseason. But 59 new players already, and I think we'll see that number probably reach into the 60s by the time that fall rolls around. But that was from CBS Sports College. Thought it was interesting to see a number put to something that we have talked about throughout the offseason. The other football news, of course, is in regards to the spring showcase. We now know that tickets are available, and I think this is the first time that I can remember the tickets being free, and you just got to go claim them. You can add them to your Apple Wallet, Google Wallet on your phone, or whatever. Usually it's like $5 or $10 donation, but the link is here on the post from the West Virginia social media account. It's the FIVO link. Go to that on your phone, on your computer, whatever. Claim your tickets. Let's pack out the spring showcase. No reason not to when it's free tickets, and you get all kinds of cool stuff as well. You'll have Almost Heaven Village open at 10 a.m. They're going to have live music from the Powell brothers, food trucks, yard games, inflatables, photo ops, face paintings, all kinds of stuff there to enjoy prior to the spring showcase, which will kick off at 1. And, of course, as more details come out on this, we'll probably put out a live stream or video talking about exactly what's going to take place because we know they're not going to play, a full game. I think it's about, maybe 15 minutes they may scrimmage, but we'll see what the other events that the players are going to be doing there for the spring showcase, which will be fun to check out there April 5th at 1. Go claim your ticket. Those are on sale now. And then the last thing that I have here on the football side before we transition and talk a little bit of basketball is I wanted to share I've been sharing the coaching videos that the West Virginia media team's been sharing online as they've been sharing little brief snippets of of West Virginia's new football coaches, kind of talking a bit about the culture, a bit about, what their position group wants to strive for, all of those good things. And now we get to hear from Pat Kirkland, who's going to be the special teams coordinator and an assistant coach on defense. So share these here. Another great job from the WVU media team, as always, with how they're putting these out.
Pat Kirkland, special teams coordinator and defensive assistant. This is my second time here. We had tremendous success the first time at West Virginia, and this is a place where we expect to compete for a conference championship and a national championship, and it's great to play for a tremendous fan base. Really just competing with a passion, tremendous work ethic, and guys that love football and take pride in what they do.
So you got to love that, especially, of course, he said the two magic words there, conference championship and national championship, two things that have eluded us for a long time, almost since Rich Rod left. We had a couple in there in the Big East, and then, really since the Big 12 came around, we have really not even, played for a conference championship in the Big 12. So that's what we're striving to get back to. That's why we brought back this regime. And, of course, Pat Kirkland, a guy that was there previously, returns, and glad to hear him say some good things there. Excited about his return, as we're excited about a lot of this staff. So we'll talk a little basketball here now, switch gears and talk about that before the back half, before I have to head off to work here in a bit, unfortunately. But like I said, I'll be live again tomorrow around this time to preview our Big 12 tournament matchup. But before we talk a little bit basketball, let me catch up with some of your all's comments here. Hey, what's going on, Linda Skidmore? Appreciate you. Move Filippo to linebacker. That way, had a lot of speed. Yeah, I would not be surprised at all to see him play that. He could play that bandit position, or get on the field as that nickel spot where they kind of have a lot of linebacker, safety, hybrid types. I think he would be a good fit there. I really do. Appalachian Paisano, I appreciate you, man. I haven't seen you in here live in a bit. I always appreciate your support, man. Channel member there. What's going on? Appalachian Paisano. If you guys want to be like Appalachian Paisano, get that nice WVU helmet badge beside your name, custom emojis, bonus content, behind the scenes stuff. Get to watch the pre-recorded videos as they're getting made, the podcast episodes, get the monthly live streams. And of course, when we get into the season, snap counts, injury reports, depth chart updates, player grades, all that good stuff, plus film reviews and game rewatches at the Almost Heaven level. And I always appreciate our channel members help keep this mic recording and that camera rolling. So you can always hit the join button below if you want to contribute that way. I appreciate you, Appalachian Paisano, as well. Hey, what's going on, Pokemon Kid Entertainment? Good to see you in here as well. Doing good, man. Been really, pleasantly surprised and happy with some of the reports coming out about the quarterbacks that we talked about here in the first part of the stream, and really liking the access that Rich Rod is giving as far as many press conferences he's put out, which have been good to report on here and give us a lot of updates. So doing good here, enjoying spring football, ready for that spring showcase April 5th, and got to be excited because it's March Madness rolling around, guys, right? Conference tournaments coming up, and then it's bracket season, get to fill out our brackets, and we'll probably do a CRW bracket group similar to what we've done in years past. I'll share that in a future live stream once we get that up and running. But yeah, doing good, man. Hope you guys all as well. Good to see you, Pokemon Kid Entertainment, for sure, man. Yeah, it has been a while. Appalachian Paisano, he said he ended up moving out in Stillwater, still support the Ears from here against Oklahoma State now, at least. Hey, at least you'll get to go to those games there in Boone's Pickens Stadium when the Mountaineers play there, which will be pretty sweet, Appalachian Paisano. But good to see you, man. Glad the move went well and you're getting settled out there. Good to see you back in here in the chat. All right, guys, but I appreciate y'all tuning in and chiming in here. I will check back up with you guys one more time before we close out, as long as time permits. Like I said, I do have to head off to work here in a bit, but let's talk a little bit about the basketball news briefly before I do that, because there are a couple of things we want to talk about here. One of those being, of course, the upcoming conference tournament, which we'll take a look at the bracket here. West Virginia luckily did secure the 8th seed with their win and getting the assistance that they needed to close the season. So they'll face the winner of Colorado and TCU, which play at 3 o'clock today Eastern time. This is Central time listed on the bracket here. So, we'll find out which team West Virginia will play, and I will plan to do a live stream tomorrow around this time or so to talk about that matchup and preview that game a little bit. Those two teams just played, actually, to end the regular season, and Colorado beat TCU, but West Virginia will play the winner of that game, and then West Virginia, if they can manage to defeat them, they'll go on to play Houston as the winner of that game, plays Houston, who has the double bye, top 4 seeds, of course, with a double bye, top 8 seeds with the single bye. That's why West Virginia gets the early bye here and doesn't play until Wednesday at 3 p.m. We'll be on ESPN Plus against either Colorado or TCU, and like I said, we'll talk about that game more when we know which opponent it will be there, but you can watch that to find out today at 3 if you want to see some scouting, do some scouting, and then maybe see who the Mountaineers will match up with tomorrow. But that's where we'll be at for the Big 12 tournament, and West Virginia should already be locked into the NCAA tournament, so we'll see where they end up coming up this selection Sunday as far as that is concerned. But the other basketball news, of course, was the Big 12 announcing their awards. And as I talked about a little bit earlier, West Virginia, unfortunately, snubbed on the Player of the Year award yet again. It kind of has been our history, not the greatest with postseason awards, but at least Javon Small was recognized and awarded first team all-conference, as he should have been there. Should be first team all-American in my opinion, but that's a whole nother story. Didn't even get Conference Player of the Year, so we know how that goes. But at least the Big 12 did honor him with the first team all-America honors. He was one of the Mountaineers that was awarded. And then we also had Sincere Harris, Buck Harris, honored for his defensive prowess, as he was named to the all-defensive team. First team there is Buck Harris, of course, who has done a great job on the defensive end for West Virginia all season, and they'll need him to continue that for them to have success in the upcoming tournaments. So that was the honors that West Virginia did get, but where were they snubbed? Of course, definitely snubbed in the Player of the Year category, which we'll talk more about that momentarily. JT Toppin does come down with it from Texas Tech, and I do want to add this, not to say Toppin's not undeserving. He's definitely... I'd rather see it go to him than if it would have went to Hunter Dickinson. I would have been upset. I'm just not a big fan of Dickinson. I think he's super overrated. Toppin certainly is deserving, but you look at Javon Small, what he had to overcome. Didn't ever have Jaden Stone, lost Tucker DeVries 8 games into the season. So Javon Small was getting double teamed game in and game out, essentially. Still put up excellent numbers, shared the Big 12 scoring title, was great on the defensive end, took care of the basketball, great assist numbers, even grabbed rebounds. And we'll talk a little bit about how impressive his season was more here momentarily. So, no knock on JT Toppin, just think that award should have been Javon Small's. Defensive Player of the Year, Joseph Tugler from Houston. Scholar Athlete of the Year was L.J. Cryer from Houston. Freshman of the Year, V.J. Edgecombe from Baylor. Newcomer of the Year, also J.T. Toppin from Texas Tech. That one, maybe you could have at least thrown Javon Small the bone and given him Newcomer of the Year award if you were going to not give him Player of the Year. So there's another snub in my eyes, as if you're not going to give him Player of the Year, how the hell are you not going to at least give him Newcomer of the Year award? Sixth man, Curtis Jones from Iowa State. Most Improved, Richie Saunders from BYU. Coach of the Year, Kelvin Sampson. They usually just give that to the team with the best records coach, but Darren DeVries has an argument there with West Virginia making the tournament and having the year that they had with all they had to overcome. All Big 12 first team, Caleb Love, Arizona. Omier at Baylor. Saunders at BYU. Cryer at Houston. Roberts at Houston. Jones at Iowa State. Dickinson at Kansas. Toppin from Texas Tech, Williams from Texas Tech, and then Javon Small from West Virginia. So, yet again, J.T. Toppin Player of the Year, but he has another first-teamer on his same squad. Javon Small, you had to do it a lot more, by himself, more so, not to knock on anyone else on the West Virginia team, but you don't see any other West Virginia players on the first or second team or even the all-freshman team, which is the other snub I want to talk about there. As you see, there is the second team there, Edgecombe from Baylor, Hall from UCF, Uzan from Houston, Jefferson from Iowa State, McMillan from Texas Tech. Your third team, Tugler from Houston, Zeke Mayo from Kansas, Coleman Hawkins from Kansas State, Keyshawn Gilbert from Iowa State, and Lipsey from Iowa State. You even see the honorable mentions, and this is the other snub. Like I said, there's multiple snubs here, guys. And the other one, no even West Virginia player named as an honorable mention even. Okay? And then all defensive team, you do get Buck Harris on there, which is good to see him joining Quaintance, Roberts, Tugler, and Lipsey. But then the all freshman team, you don't give Jonathan Powell a spot on the all freshman team. Did he not hit more threes than anyone else in the entire conference that's a freshman? I mean, that's got to get you some type of nod there. So, Jonathan Powell there, all newcomer team. No Javon Small on the all newcomer team either? Really? You snub him with newcomer of the year and don't put him on the all newcomer team? Did you guys forget that he was a newcomer? I don't know. Or maybe they don't consider him a newcomer because he's the in-conference transfer, but either way, I mean, they should have thrown us more bones than that. Maybe that's, maybe I just figured it out because he did transfer from Oklahoma State, so they don't consider him a newcomer. Okay, but nonetheless, there's no way that West Virginia shouldn't have somebody at least on the honorable mention list. Amani Hansberry with a great end of year. Jonathan Powell, as we talked about, one of the better freshman seasons. Hit more threes than any other freshman in the Big 12. Doesn't get on the all-freshman team. And then no other one on the team besides Javon Small makes first, second, or third team, but he doesn't get the nod for Player of the Year. It's right up there for me with Kevin Jones getting snubbed by the Big East when they gave it to Jay Crowder, which at least the Big East had the excuse then that we were leaving the conference the next year, so they didn't want to give us an award on the way out. The Big 12, doesn't really have an excuse except for they just always continue to snub us, time and time again. So there's another one, but, congrats to JT Toppin on his Big 12 Player of the Year award, even though it feels like it should be Javon Small if you're asking me. So rant over, guys, on that one, but did have to talk about it a little bit. And just to add some context to it, as Ryan Decker put here on social media, Ryan Decker from Golden Blue Nation shared this one, some context to Javon Small's incredible season. First WVU player since Jawan Staten in 2014, so over a decade, to lead the Big 12 in points per game. The program's best scoring average since ever being in the Big 12 at 18.5 points per game. No Big 12 player we've had has scored more points than Javon Small. Most threes made by WVU players since we joined the Big 12 with 79, all while bringing the primary focus of every opposing team, drawing double teams, essentially game in and game out, being face guarded, the entire length of the floor sometimes even. So definitely highway robbery to me, but hopefully it motivates Javon Small to have a strong Big 12 tourney and a strong performance in the big dance as well. That's what we can hope for, guys. But that's pretty much what I had. I want to share another video from the WVU media team highlighting the win over UCF to close it out on Senior Day before we close up shop. But let me catch up on some of your all's comments really quickly before we do that. Let's see here. Indiana just reported they're going after DeVries, according to Matt Dixon chat. Joining up, I guess, with Iowa. That's rumored to be maybe going after him as well. I think DeVries is going to be a hot name in coaching searches. That's just something we're going to have to deal with. But the positive side of that to me is he's been super loyal, stayed wherever he's been, multiple years. I don't think he's going to go anywhere, especially after year one. I don't think he's, Coach P that they had on the women's side a couple of years ago. I think that he's going to stick around for a little bit. Just my personal opinion. We'll see what happens. Some basketball blue bloods come calling. You never know what could shake out, but I got faith that DeVries will be around here next year, especially since Tucker is coming back as well. I just think that he's going to be back personally. Let's see. Linda Skidmore says, I'd rather see Small win tournament MVP. Hey, there you go. There's how you get your revenge. Win tournament MVP or go get, most outstanding player in a region in a tournament or something. Drumwolf62 says, I knew we would get robbed as usual. Yeah, that is, I guess, the bittersweet part of this is that it doesn't even hurt as much because I wasn't even expecting him to win, even though I knew he should. I was more expecting us to be robbed because, as Drumwolf states here, the Big 12 hates WVU. As seems to always be like something against us, and doesn't it? Seems like we can never catch a break on that end of things, unfortunately. Let's see. Drumwolf says, hopefully this fires up all the WVU basketball team going forward to win as many games moving forward. Completely agree. Think that could be something, lights a fire under them. I would love to see it happen. I really would. Michelle Weintraub, appreciate you tuning in and chiming in. WVU is the redheaded stepchild. We get overlooked and disrespected all the time. Exactly why, unfortunately, we're kind of used to it by now and even expect it, as we were talking about there a second ago, for sure. Hey, channel member Big Dan T, always appreciate you, man. He says, great to see P. Fox back. Yeah, if you guys haven't yet, go watch the video I put out on the channel earlier today. Preston Fox has returned to the WVU football roster, which led to a WVU football roster update video, which is great. Can play all four positions, which is something Rich Rod is looking for at the receiver, that someone that can play the slot or outside. He has experience doing both, and then, of course, great experience on special teams as well. So glad to see him back, and hopefully ends his career on a high note also. For sure. Okay, so let me share this. Another great job from the WVU media team before we wrap up. I was going to go through the stats and recap UCF, but it's far enough away now that I think it's kind of too late to do that. But we can share the great job by the WVU media team with their recap video. West Virginia getting the win that they needed on Senior Day. 19 wins on the season now. They'll grab their 20th, I believe, in either the Big 12 tournament or the NCAA tournament. I believe they'll grab it in the Big 12 tournament. And Coach DeVries has had 20 wins every year he's been a head coach. Such an impressive job he did this season, and a great win here for West Virginia. Let's check it out.
They have doubled last season's win total, and tonight with a win can emphatically leave no doubt they're heading to the promised land of the NCAA tournament. And now, with the curtain about to drop and close on the home schedule, a sellout crowd ready to bid the Mountaineers a fond and well-deserved farewell.
Guys, man, we got to finish the job. Our job's not done yet. Okay, we got to finish the job tonight. And it's a full 40.
And away we go. And shot on the rim, and Hansberry underneath, lays it up and in. Hansberry gets by Joe, sets his feet, jumper up and in. Here's a Jonathan Powell three, got it. Jonathan wide open three, got it. And again for three, go. It's in the lane, here's an alley-oop, slam dunk from Small to Hansberry. Sincere Harris, he lays it up in the air. Here's Nelly. Oh, slam dunk to O'Connor. Forces one up. He hit it for three. It is halftime here in Morgantown.
Everybody now, let's go.
Powell for a three. Got it. Three. Got it. Powell, here's an open three. Go! Time for the Gold and Blue. They have done it. In his very first season as West Virginia's head coach, Darren DeVries leads the Mountaineers into the NCAA tournament.
Awesome stuff there Another good job by the WVU media team, as always, and a perfect end to the season. And the end of the season that, Javon Small and the other seniors that came in and helped out this team really deserve. And you love it for, a couple of guys that I mentioned in the past, Ed Andre and Javon Small had never played in the NCAA tournament, and now they're going to get to, fulfill that dream in their final season, which is pretty cool. And just tip of the cap to Javon Small and the awesome season that he had. He's the Big 12 Player of the Year in our hearts as Mountaineer fans, at least, right? We can say that for sure, guys. So that's pretty much all I had. Like I said, got to jet off to work here in a bit, but I'll catch up in the chat one more time before we close up shop here. Appreciate everyone that tuned in here live. Like I said, if you tuned in live on Facebook or Twitch, be sure you come over to the Country Roads Webcast YouTube channel and subscribe here so you can get access to the pre-recorded videos. Put out a roster update video earlier today, and you get access to the podcast episodes and can become a channel member where you get the extra WVU football content for somebody that just can't get enough. I know there's several of those like myself that can't do that, and we try and provide it to you here on the Country Roads Webcast YouTube channel. So appreciate you guys. If you didn't get a chance to tune in live, throw your thoughts in the comments. Always appreciate those interactions as well. Let's see. Drumwolf with a good question. Who would I rather play against in the Big 12 tournament, TCU or Colorado, which are the two teams that are playing later today? We'll find out who West Virginia will play tomorrow. It'll be one of those two. We beat Colorado the one time we played them. I think, was it 78-70? I think it was by 8. Small loss to TCU the first game, and then absolutely dominated them in the most recent game. Then, of course, like I said, TCU and Colorado just played each other, and Colorado actually dominated TCU. So, if you're going by recent results, I think I would say TCU, but also we have a loss to TCU, so kind of worried about that. I guess maybe it's recency bias, but I think I still would say TCU. But the positive side to me there is I think West Virginia should be favored against either team probably and have a good chance to win that game, and I think that they, I don't want to make my prediction here. Like I said, I'm going to do it tomorrow on the show, but I got a good feeling about it. Let's just say that for now, and it would be win number 20 for West Virginia and win number 20 for Darren DeVries, which is a big number for Coach DeVries. He's always had at least 20 wins as a head coach. Hey, what's going on, JR? Appreciate you hopping in, man. It's all right that you're late. That's what the playback's for. You can rewind and watch it all the way from the beginning, brother. And we got some really good updates on the quarterback competition at the beginning, so if you guys popped in late, be sure you watch this after the fact on the playback on YouTube or just rewind and check it out because some good updates on that quarterback battle. Pokemon Kid Entertainment says he'd love to see Javon put up 40 to prove they made a bad choice with the Big 12 Player of the Year. Yep, that's what I'm hoping, is that it motivates him and we see him go off in the conference tournament and even more importantly in the NCAA tournament and make us have a little run there. That'd be awesome to see for sure. Big Dan T channel member with a great reminder. Yes, before we close out, always, if you guys would, you can always help out the channel without, contributing anything monetarily, just by hitting that thumbs up button, liking the video helps a ton with that YouTube algorithm, and being sure you're subscribed here as well to get these videos, notifications right into your feed and get everything, that you need to know about West Virginia football coming right at you there under that subscription tab on YouTube, which doesn't cost you anything to subscribe or hit that like button. But Pokemon Kid Entertainment says they've given Coach DeVries a pay upgrade. They definitely 100% should be. 100% that extension should be coming, like we talked about earlier. Teams are going to be going after him, so definitely need to lock him down for the future, especially with the impressive year that he had this year, doing more with less, so to speak, when next year he should have, Tucker back, should have those 3 McDonald's All-Americans coming in, and if we can do a good job on retainment, the sky's the limit with what we saw Darren DeVries do with this year's team, getting us to the NCAA tournament, getting us a first-round bye in the upcoming Big 12 Hoops tournament as well, which we'll talk more about tomorrow, guys. I'll be live probably around the same time to try and preview that game. If you want to see who West Virginia will be playing, you can watch that at 3 o'clock today on ESPN+, TCU and Colorado. One of those two will be West Virginia's opponent tomorrow at 3 on ESPN+, and we'll preview that game before it happens tomorrow. But appreciate you guys that tuned into this one live. Appreciate you guys watching the playback as well. If you didn't get a chance to throw your thoughts in the chat, throw them in the comments. Be back with some more spring football updates later in the week, I'm sure, as we have 2 more spring practices coming up on Wednesday and Thursday, and we'll share some of the thoughts and some of the takeaways that come out of there. I'm sure we'll get a Rich Rod press conference following at least one of those. So looking forward to that and chatting with you guys again tomorrow about the basketball game. Always appreciate you guys. I'm Jordan Cruz, and until next time, let's go Mountaineers.